So here we are on set. This is that studio. KATS Roseville. Anyway, this is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster, and on the set of the summer special of Starship Locations, and it has a budget of 0. It's not going to cost any money at all. Because it's all volunteer. It's all Kal Kat doing stuff, and it just so happens that today that nobody's here. So they left. So I started filming it. I did about 10 pages of it. I wrote a script called the Companion Obsession. And at first, it didn't appear to have jokes, but then when you read the script, it is quite witty. It is funny. It has jokes, so that's cool. And the lighting is really different here. It's kind of flat, so it's kind of like modern movies, where they're all kind of like because of the traffic lighting's up in the ceiling. So we don't need to really fix up the thing, but day shoots are better than night shoots with it flat up there. Not sure how that's going to work with the rest of this movie to finish it down. But we're gonna do as much as we can. So there's always something going on, so we want to make it so there's nothing going on, be a noise. I wrote a script and wanted to do something with Zephyr Cochran and the Companions, and wanted to do the Archer speech again, just to hit it home that again make fun of that awful holodeck program at the end of Enterprise and fun of that just a little bit, and have Captain Alexander Poroshenko say, and Jeremy Astor from Next Generation have them say Barclay was messing with it again. Trip didn't really die. It was just a program. Screwy holiday, and it becomes relevant in the story because the bad guys in the story are these. There were a plethora of cloud creatures in the original Star Trek, or so the Next Generation, and some of them were malevolent, some of them were not. The Companion wasn't so malevolent, although she did completely rewrite two people's DNA, and including she cured the lady, but she becomes one of them. There's also so I thought, and then there's these other cloud creatures that show up later that are malevolent. They're connected in some way. I kind of decided to do a backhanded spoof thing of the premise of something like Prometheus as well, by having there be the super weapon thing and the super weapon joke, of course, and have it be okay, they're not acting like a super weapon anymore. It's been ages, and the bad guy cloud creatures that are more like changelings, and so are these, because you can't show a cloud creature. It doesn't make sense with action figures. So it's people that have been transfigured, and they show up a little zombie-like, like the last season. But this isn't zombies. This is actually the crew of the ship, the Esteban, 5 years from now, the 2408, trying to stay out of history's way, because they don't want to change the timeline that they've already gone forward in with the various Q altered timelines. And so they're just hanging out in 2408 or so. And Captain Astor is the first officer, and Kiriyoshi is the engineer. Hertzman is the doctor. Emoji is the nurse. Ship. There's a number of other, although it probably would be reversed there, but and here it isn't. I wanted to put a version of Avery Woods from the other story and Shar Hicks in there as well. And in order to do that, it also had to be about 4 years later, or for that to work. So it's 4 or 5 years later, so it's 2408. So they can be in it as adults, and they're not cadets. Partly because of all the drama associated with Starfleet Academy. Let's just skip past that. Just not address it. We're not going to address it. But one thing we do in this episode is we finally give Miral and Molly something to do in the episode, because they're now a higher rank, and they're like a Molly's like a non-com science officer person, but they refer to her sometimes as lieutenant or chief, but she's not really a lieutenant. It's more of a chief. Like Miles was. Kiriyoshi O'Brien's there, of course. my brother. There's family in it. Yeah. The characters are put back where they are. Since the move of the studio, there's been there's been contact before the move happened with the main people that some of these were based on, and for the permission to use some of them. It didn't seem right to use the Scott Boyd's character or the Jessica Wood's character, even though we could in this episode. We just decided that they should be over on the Koinonia of the ship doing their own thing. So that's where they are. But yeah, this is the Esteban on a mission. And they decided that we should do a Star Trek story movie where they go to a planet and it's a mystery, which my late mother would have approved of, a mystery story. Why not? They've done some Star Trek mystery episodes. Mystery ailment on a planet they gotta go that hasn't been around for centuries. They gotta go find out what's going on with that. And also the premise that they have, the Holo novels and the Star Trek novels and all those are canon or aren't they? And I guess if the writers of the novels are somewhat Cillian and have power, then they are kind of canon because the Cillians can just make them canon because they're kind of like Q. And so instead of them being energy creatures, they're actually going to be physical action figures. And there's going to be good guy, bad guy ones. But there's not going to be a Khan, because that's silly. There's not going to be a universal destroying weapon. It's more like they are the weapon. So some of them show up to be weapons. This scene just referenced sparkly vampires as a hint later on that some of them are the vampire cloud, a Dickeronian creature from they're the bad guys. The Dickeronians are the bad guys, and the companions are the good guys. To know who the good guys and bad guys are. They hinted at that. Sparkly vampires. Yes, because Star Trek did it before Twilight did it. So sets in the middle of the room. So there's that's what we're doing behind the scenes. They go on a quest to go to these different planets to try and find a cure for the Centauri plague thing, which is a reference to Brad Ferguson's Crisis on Centaurus, in which that one was an antimatter terrorist bomb attack done in '86. So clearly he was thinking of different kinds of terrorists than post 2020, post 2000, 2001. Like maybe in the '80s it would have been like rebels, Irish rebels or something. I think he's probably thinking of that in the '80s. It was a different group. Maybe he's thinking of the Libyans from Back to the Future. I don't know, but in this version, it's they unleash a plague planet. They got to go cure it, but they send this Esteban ship out to go look for the cure at the companion system, which is kind of fun. And also, they're supposed to be keeping out of history's way, to quote Star Trek: First Contact, and because if they interfere with the timeline, so the command is given the order to go out because none of this should have happened. They shouldn't have been to the planet. In fact, according to the Starfleet people, New Athens City probably shouldn't exist. It should be like the Holo novel. So they're like, okay, the city's still there, so clearly the timeline's been altered. And also the other stuff is still there to send you to go to the city as well as going to look for the aliens. Yeah, it's not as convoluted as it kind of seems. It really isn't. I like the idea of them being sort of time trapped and they can't communicate with the other. But doing a classic Trek episode. Again, all 2026 has been stories honoring the 60th anniversary of Star Trek. That's what we're doing all year. And this is the summer episode in May. Here, it's April. It's April now, late April. Hopefully the story goes all the way through, get to the end. There won't be much making of on this, just because it doesn't really have to be. It's got its own. It's going in its own direction. It's got thing that flows. So, hopefully we can get done with at least half of it. By the time everybody comes back, then the other half will get done, and that would be awesome. but I don't think that this evening we're doing much more of it. And yeah, I don't want to. It's been a couple of months. Don't want to overdo it. So, but yeah, yeah. So, you know, with no budget, none at all whatsoever. These are old sets. These are old figures. Yeah. So none of that. No budget. Literally none. No budget. Just a script I wrote and filmed, and no AdSense, no revenue. It's not going to make any money. Just a fan film for fun. That's what these all were. Fan films for fun. They're not making any money. Never have been. Yeah, because and probably don't need a lot of disclaimers in the credits. Don't need a lot of extra characters in the credits. There are even a couple that probably shouldn't be in the script. Probably just cut them out and give the lines to someone else. Because I wanted it just to be the 7 or 8 main characters, and then they're dealing with aliens and stuff. Of course, I pulled too many aliens out of the box. But yeah, so that's kind of it. And I don't need to go into anything else other than that. Different location. Yeah, so, yes, this is Kal Kat, the Calcaster, and this is making of on day 2 of the companion obsession. We have the whole day, but now it's going to end. We'll see how the rest of the week, if we can put the rest of this together. It's going to be slower, I think, the rest of the week. But here we had finished half of the movie in 2 days, and yeah, because it was quiet. We'll see whether a lot of the inferences and things in it are. Yeah, there's a lot of references to other stuff. If you're familiar with the Star Trek novels and the various stellar names and things, you'll even enjoy this as a little bit of a exploration similar to how Transformers Mush did a lot of the Transformers backstory stuff as well, and a lot of the lore, and kind of inspired the lore. Well, the Star Trek novels kind of inspired the Star Trek lore as well. Not just Starship Locations, not just Silly Trek, but the novels. Especially a lot of the novels have inspired. Well, some of the novels have inspired episodes of Star Trek. And some of the writers of the novels have written episodes of Star Trek. It's rare. A few, the Garfield and Judith Reese Stevens, Kodo, Jerry Taylor, Michael Jan Friedman, Diane Duane. They've all written episodes and books as well over the years. So taking a nod to that, saying it's canon or it isn't canon. Also expanding the Cillian idea, the Cillians, the children of Pinehill that are now in their 50s, who've grown up and they've given Q powers, because Q was giving out powers in season 1 of Next Generation. So what if they gave it to these kids? Powers. They make their own universe and play in it. So here we have the idea of an earlier Cillian in the form of one of the Star Trek writers, named Brad Ferguson, who wrote Crisis on Centaurus, and apparently he's a Cillian. He's also given Q powers. So there's this other universe where that happened. And also maybe the writers of the show also have slightly up powers. So yeah, there's that kind of joke going on. So it's not as convoluted as it sounds. A lot of in-jokes in here. There's the really, when you think about the production and the writing of the 60s show, they weren't really thinking, okay, we need to figure out where all these stars and planets actually are, and we need to go to them and whatever. There was no edict for them to find out where Vulcan is and where Andor is and where all those other planets. That was later. There wasn't any edict to find those. And fans have since tried to find out where those things are. They even forgot during the show, during the writing of the first series, mentioning several Rigels, like they were just different Rigel planets, or mentioning several Denebs like they did in the original classic and Next Generation, mentioning Trilliums and whatever. That's a little different though. And they would often take stellar name classifications and put them on the end betazoids of Beta, instead of Beta being the beta star in a constellation, or Alpha 2 or something, or Beta 3 or something. And what do they mean? They weren't really worried about that. They just wrote a story. Writers wrote a story. You can't blame the writers for everything though, because the producers called off the set. They said it was fine, so we filmed it. And they weren't thinking. They didn't even have a term for what a black hole was until Star Trek: The Motion Picture in the 70s. So yeah, they didn't know. Yeah, they knew of something like that, and what it could be, but they didn't. Yeah, even call it that. So give them some leeway for coming up with goofy stuff like, oh, we have a Rigel like 5 times over. Different Rigel. Oh, it doesn't matter. So yeah, yeah. And this is just the making of in the second day. Going on about that. You have, yeah, and Vulcan was not said to be 40 Iridani until much later. The fans came up with that. I think an Enterprise canonized what was in the books, saying it was there. Yeah. It's Vulcan was originally a term for a hypothetical planet near the orbit of Mercury. It wasn't even in the solar system. So was Krypton, by the way. In another series. Yeah. So you have all these odd things. Actually, go back early enough in early writer's Bible of the 60s Star Trek, 60 years later. It said that Spock was a Martian. He's a Martian. He's from Mars. Really, really early on, he was a Martian. It's from Mars. But yeah, they didn't do that, did they? Yeah. Anyway, so the later shows did different things. The Next Generation had some science experts on it, and they kind of tried to make it a little better. They tried to make the star dates different, so they lined up. Whereas in the original series, the star dates didn't line up with anything. Roddenberry just said, just so it's in order of the season, it doesn't matter what the star date is. People try to explain that. They have made mistakes. And we've done the Stardate calculator things on the internet. There are some with mistakes. I don't know which ones do or don't, and won't call them out. But I did the calculator myself. Discovered that a lot of the dates are off, even the Next Generation and beyond. But only because of how they structured that weird 3 zeros digit thing. It doesn't matter. But yeah, so even this story has a stardate that had to be kicked up by a couple of digits in order to make it 2408. So even this one had some screwy stuff. I decided on 2408 to make it later and make the characters who would be cadets now older, so they'd be officers on the ship. I'm not trying to avoid Academy. I'm just trying to say okay, we don't need to do that, because I never really wanted to do that in the first place. So it isn't that. And there's your, so it's fun. I think it works. The canon stuff works. The references to the books work. And there's a reference to a politician from 2026. It's just mentioned in there, that got drunk and ended up saying he was teleported. I threw that joke in there as Cochrane was teleported, because there's this scene. The fans, not the show, the fans. It wasn't the show. Decided that he went to a certain solar system in Canis Major, and that Canaris, Epsilon Canaris, and Gamma Canaris. They just thought with the word Canaris because it was funny. They had no other reason other than it was funny sounding. And fans have since said, oh, it's just a pentamor of Ursa Major, which it can't be. It's a solar system in another. It's just a constellation in another solar system other than Earth. That's all. Unless they meant one of the bird constellations. Then there's no Canaris. So they're trying to find the stars. The fans, and even on Memory Alpha, even on Memory Beta, Alpha Beta, Memory Alpha now and Beta. They made a book about Memory Prime too. Anyway, but yeah, memory of the website. And the fans are trying to figure out where the various planets are. And that was one of them. Where is the companion planet? And is it near Rigel? And here's the planets they went to when Cochrane on his last mission just ran off. They probably weren't thinking. They were thinking, we're just going to mention a bunch of planets in Star Trek, just to say, after the fact, ex post facto, yeah, this is where he went, without realizing that it's impossible that where he went. So there's a gag in here where they just go, oh, well, how did you get there? Well, Cochrane was drunk because it was established in First Contact. He was drunk, and he happened to hang out with a companion on a planet near where he was going, and they got drunk, and her Warp 5 ship took them to the companion planet. There, that's all you need. That's all you need. Anyway, so that's there you go. Sure, why not? They're probably trying to figure out what if it's 400 light years or 700 light years. They couldn't reach there. Back then, they weren't thinking. Case be told, second episode of the original Star Trek, they traveled to the edge of the galaxy. Realized that in the 60s, they didn't think the galaxy was as big as they did like in the 80s. But no, they could not have done that. And they could not have reached the edge of the galaxy. It would have taken them weeks, if not months, at warp to 9. The fast warp back then. Warp scales have changed too. Yeah, they wouldn't have reached it. As Discovery actually did something right by having them go to the edge of the galaxy in that one, and it took them like several episodes to get there, because it would take them several episodes to get there. Yeah, it would have, even in the future. Although the warp would have been improved by where they were in the 32nd century, and they would have been there quicker, but they didn't think of it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't entirely blame the writers. They were just well. This sounds good. Let's do this. They weren't thinking people will analyze it 60 years later and go like, wait a minute, where's Rigel at? So, yeah, Rigel, the big Rigel is a big blue giant binary, and they couldn't have reached it. He couldn't have. There must be this other one. Let's say the Orion planet isn't Bellatrix. Let's say the Orion planet is Pi 3 Orionis instead. It's a little closer. That's probably what the Rigel one is. But Rigel Cantaris is one of the Rigels. So there you go. And that's even closer. That's Centauri. But yeah. Doing an episode that takes place somewhat on Alpha Centauri and follows the trip of Zephyr Cochrane through the galaxy is a fun idea, like a scavenger hunt thing. So the A story is the plague. The B story is the scavenger hunt, or the quest to solve the mystery. So they're on a quest to solve the mystery. So able to squeeze out a little bit more here in the afternoon. Just a little bit more. And get up to, we have 15 minutes left of the script. Maybe 17 minutes. And most of it is them messing with. So that's what's left. So that's, going on ahead. And that's basically all for the making of. For that. Brief day 3 making of, they make fun of the novels, the Brad Ferguson novel, Crisis on Centaurus, and it's kind of the story. Also, the story is also, they imply there's cloud creatures infiltrating their minds and stuff, which goes back to the story that inspired all of Star Trek, which is Forbidden Planet, and also Westerns. But Forbidden Planet was a big influence on it. The idea that there was an ego creature that was messing with them. That became the Telosians in Star Trek. In the cage. Yes. So but yeah, there's also a lot of in-jokes in this story. But you can kind of get them. You get this fan in-jokes. And yeah, obviously the Cillians of Pine Hill, the guys that wrote Silly Trek, obviously, yeah, it's pretentious to think that we control the Star Trek universe. Ooh. So there's a joke about that in there. Saying, well, all fans control the Star Trek universe. It's not the other way. That's what the joke is. So yeah, they've even gone so far as to have. I was joking about naming conventions briefly. That there was a ship in the Battle of Wolf 359, and it's in the lexicon, and it's seen briefly when you see the HD version. It's the Yamaguchi, named for Krista Yamaguchi. Now, what's weird about that is clearly the art department was a fan of the skater Krista Yamaguchi, named the ship after her. It's not named after some admiral guy or anything. No, it's named after Christy Yamaguchi, the skater from the 90s, which that was funny. So here there's a reference to a holonovel thing, and the character and the companions. The companions were named the companion, but just because that's what he called it. Yeah, so they're calling themselves companions. But yeah. Yeah, actually, and yeah, the stellar distances don't make sense because they didn't think about it, like I said in the other making of. And even though, oh, this is 20 light years away, this is 40 light years away, this is 100, this is 90. Yeah, how did Enterprise get to Rigel 10? My theory is that Rigel 10 is not one of the Rigel planets. My theory is that Rigel 10 is actually a planet in the Proxima system, Proxima Centauri, right next to Earth and Centaurus. That's that's what they should have said. They should have said, oh, we jumped to Alpha Centauri, which is really close by. And that's when they had the incident on Rigel 10. It's a planet in Proxima. That's why they were. That would make more sense than making that Rigel, just because we wanted to use Rigel again. And actually, it works. Rigel Kentaurus is Alpha Centauri A, of A and B, and there's Proxima. So I just assumed it was Centaurus. So, yeah, from Enterprise. Anyway. So, this is brief making of, again. We're up to 1. I don't think we're going to be able to do anything more this afternoon. We'll see probably tomorrow. Do another, through the last 20 minutes. So yeah, so that's it. And we have the space and the ships going to lunch, and then yeah, here of course. Yeah, not going anywhere. But yeah, it's going to get noisy in about 10 minutes. Anyway, so yeah. Day 4. This is Kal Kat, the Kal Kat story. This is day 4. Day 4 on the set of the companion obsession. Completed principal photography just prior to 10 o'clock. It's almost 10. And yeah, we'll probably not strike the set because there could be reshoots. So we'll just leave the set up while we go through. Probably aren't. It's probably good, but we'll just leave it up. Just to make sure. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, we did a episode with a lot of in-jokes and stuff. That last part there with they have the different elements. It doesn't medically make sense, but that's okay. There was a lot of research. But also Alexander's future from Star Trek Online, which is an error in the game. Yeah, he can't be. Yeah, he not only on Deep Space Nine he couldn't have been a Starfleet an officer on a ship yet. He couldn't have been married a year later. That doesn't make any sense. 2 years later. No, he would be. I don't care if Klingons age faster than humans. That makes no sense. He's 2/3 Klingon, so that wouldn't make sense. Anyway, so yeah, that was a joke. At the end, a little ad-libbed. Everything seemed to work. Yeah, there's no extras, really. It's just straight go through it. This is the summer special for the 60th anniversary of Star Trek. Oh, there probably could squeeze out another one before September, but we'll see. Maybe not. We'll just see. We'll just see whether there's another idea. I just wanted to test the waters, see what everything worked out. It seemed to. I didn't want to just start a whole season. It's just one episode, one movie, one special. Captain Lushenko. Captain Lushenko is the legacy. Captain Lushenko and Jeremy Astor being Worf's Bond brother, and therefore Lushenko being his nephew. That's funny. But yes. Yeah. So that's the relationship there. It's not a Mary Sue. It's just coincidence. Yes. So yeah. It's not a Mary Sue. It just looks like they put us on their mission and discovering the companionship, and it leaves and all that. Yeah, we weren't intending to do any more with that. And having Girardi Borg and Wershingus Borg on the ship is funny. Also, that she looks like the Borg Kestra. So it kind of implies that the Borg Kestra. Also, the Hannah Robbie from the other story. It's the same character. There's another Borg Kestra and another Kestra, but it's the Robbie But the other one is on the bridge as the Charlene Hicks. That's a little confusing, but because it's the same voice, it doesn't matter. They're just playing the younger people in 2408. It's still them. Well, it's not Tamara. Tamara's not there. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah. But yes,